If you looked at us from the outside, you'd probably think we had it all figured out. The house, the cars, the routines. We were the couple people pointed to and said, that's what stability looks like. I used to believe that too. My wife and I had been together almost a decade, married for 4. We met in college. I was the quiet one with a plan. She was the spontaneous one who made life feel less predictable. Opposites attract, they say. But sometimes opposites just pull in different directions until something breaks. The first few years were good. Not perfect, but comfortable. We laughed a lot, took weekend trips, hosted dinners with friends. She had this way of making everything feel easy, like life wasn't supposed to be about constant struggle. I admired that about her, but somewhere along the way, things shifted. It wasn't one big fight or some dramatic falling out. It was smaller than that, quieter, like watching a light bulb dim slowly, until one day the room is just darker and you can't remember when it happened. She started sleeping in later. Her freelance projects piled up, but money wasn't coming in. I didn't mind. I was doing well at work, and I wanted her to take her time figuring things out. She'd talk about starting a business, about finding herself, and I encouraged her. That's what partners are supposed to do, right? Support each other through the slow seasons. But support only works when it's mutual. Soon, I realized I was giving more than I was getting, emotionally, financially, everything. I'd come home from 12-hour shifts to find her scrolling through her phone, half listening when I talked. When I asked if something was wrong, she'd say, "You're overthinking again," and go back to whatever was on her screen. The little things started piling up. She stopped saying goodnight, stopped asking how my day went, started wearing new perfume, started guarding her phone like it was classified information. I told myself she was just going through something, maybe stress, maybe burnout. Because when you love someone, you want to believe the best version of them still exists somewhere underneath whatever phase they're in. But my gut knew better. There's a difference between distance and disinterest, and what we had wasn't distance anymore. It was absence. She was still in the house, but she wasn't with me. I didn't know it yet, but the woman sitting across from me at dinner, smiling politely, saying all the right things, had already left our marriage. Her body was there, but her heart had packed up and moved on. I just hadn't caught up to the truth yet. It started with a feeling, the kind you can't prove, but you can't shake either. You tell yourself you're paranoid, that love deserves trust, but deep down, you already know. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. The bed was empty. The house was dark, except for a faint glow coming from the living room. I walked out quietly, half expecting to find her watching TV. Instead, she was sitting on the couch, whispering into her phone. When she saw me, she jumped like she'd been caught stealing. "Oh, hey," she said, forcing a smile. "Couldn't sleep. Just talking to Amber." Amber, her friend from work. The one who texted her once every 3 months. I nodded, pretending to believe it, and went back to bed. But the image of her whispering in the dark stuck in my mind like a splinter. The next morning, she was overly affectionate. Made me breakfast, kissed me on the cheek, told me she loved me. It should have felt good. Instead, it felt like guilt wearing perfume. Later that day, while she was in the shower, I saw her tablet charging on the nightstand. We'd always shared devices, same Apple ID, same accounts. Nothing to hide, that's what she used to say. So I picked it up. At first, it was normal stuff. Work emails, shopping receipts. Then I noticed a text thread with a contact named Megan. That caught my eye because she doesn't know any Megan. I opened it. My hands started shaking before I even scrolled. Messages, photos, plans to meet. It wasn't just emotional cheating. It was physical, intimate, detailed. There were messages from hotels, timestamps matching the nights she said she was working late. And then I saw one line that broke me. "Can't wait to see you again, babe." Last night was perfect. My first instinct wasn't rage. It was denial. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe this was some mistake, some misunderstanding. But then I saw her selfies, taken in our bedroom mirror. Same robe, same background, sent to him. I just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling the air leave my lungs. Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, collapsed in seconds. She came out of the shower humming, towel wrapped around her hair, looking innocent. When she saw me sitting there with her tablet, she froze for half a second, just long enough for me to see the truth in her eyes. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I turned off the screen, stood up, and said I needed to get to work early. She smiled, kissed me goodbye, completely unaware that I'd just read every secret she tried to hide. The whole drive to work, I replayed her words. "You're overthinking again. Number." I wasn't overthinking. I was finally seeing clearly. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just break your trust, it rewires your reality. And from that moment on, I wasn't her husband anymore. I was a man waiting for the right moment to end the lie. For the next 2 days, I moved like a ghost through my own house. She laughed, cooked dinner, played music, and I just watched her, wondering how long she'd been pretending, how many times she'd kissed me after being with him, how many "I love yous" were just lies wrapped in routine. I didn't confront her right away. Part of me wanted to, but another part, the colder part, wanted to see if she'd do it again. So I waited. That Friday, she said she was meeting a client downtown. I said nothing. An hour later, I checked the same tracking app she'd forgotten about. Her phone pinged at a hotel. Same one from the messages. That was all I needed. By the time she came home, I was ready. Dinner was already on the table. Candles lit. Everything looked perfect. The kind of scene you'd see on an anniversary night. She looked surprised. "What's all this?" I smiled. "Just wanted to spend some time with my wife." She sat down, started talking about her meeting. Every word was like glass in my ears. I waited until she was done, then slid an envelope across the table. Her smile faded. "What's this?" "Proof," I said quietly. She opened it. Printouts of her messages, screenshots, hotel confirmations. Her hands started shaking before she even finished the first page. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Finally, she whispered, "It's not what it looks like." I almost laughed. That phrase, the universal anthem of every cheater who ran out of lies. I stayed silent, just watching her crumble. The more she talked, the more desperate she sounded. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I was lonely. It just happened. I said nothing, because there's no sentence, no excuse that can unbreak something that's already shattered. After a while, she stood up, tears streaking her face. "You're not even going to yell. You're just sitting there." "I don't need to yell," I said. "I'm done." She froze. "Done? Pack your things." Her eyes widened. "Wait, what? You can't just..." "I can, and I am." She tried to come closer, maybe to touch me, maybe to plead. But I stepped back. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "It was a mistake. We can fix this." "No," I said quietly. "You broke it. I'm just acknowledging it." The silence after that was heavier than any scream. She finally realized I meant it. The shock in her eyes turned to fear, not of losing me, but of losing the comfort I provided. I walked away, leaving her standing there in the kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of her own choices. That night, she slept on the couch. I didn't sleep at all. I just stared at the ceiling, feeling the strange calm that comes when you finally stop begging life to make sense. Tomorrow, I'd make her leave. Tonight, I let the truth sink in. And the truth was simple. The woman I married was gone. All that was left was a stranger wearing her face. The next morning felt unreal. The sun came through the blinds like any other day, but the air in the house was different, heavier, quieter, like the walls knew what was coming. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in, still wearing the same clothes from the night before. Her eyes were red, face pale. She'd been crying. I poured myself a cup of coffee, said nothing. "Can we please talk?" she whispered. I didn't look at her. "We did. Please, I can explain." "You did." "I just don't care anymore." She flinched like I'd hit her. Then the begging started. She swore it was over. Said she'd cut him off. Said she'd do anything to fix it. Every sentence came with tears, promises, and desperation. But I'd heard enough lies to last me a lifetime. "You had choices," I said quietly. "You just never thought I'd stop giving you chances." When she realised I wasn't changing my mind, panic replaced guilt. She followed me down the hall as I started packing her things. "Wait! You can't just throw me out." I kept folding clothes, silent. "Where am I supposed to go?" she shouted. "That's not my problem anymore." I wasn't being cruel. I was being finished. It's strange how love can die in real time. You can feel it happen, like a thread snapping inside your chest. One moment, you care. The next, it's just gone. She tried another tactic, softness. Came up behind me, wrapped her arms around me, whispered, "Please don't do this." For a second, my body almost remembered what it felt like to be held by her. Then I saw the tablet on the dresser, the same one I'd found the messages on. And the illusion shattered. I stepped away. "Take your things," I said. "You've got 2 hours." She stared at me like I'd turned into someone else. But the truth was, I was just becoming the version of myself she'd buried. The man with boundaries. When she finally started packing, it wasn't graceful. She threw clothes into bags, muttering, crying, pleading between breaths. I didn't help. I just watched in silence, my heart pounding but steady. When she reached the door, she stopped. "I don't have anywhere to go," she said softly. "You should have thought about that before you burned down the only home you had." I opened the door. She hesitated, standing there with her suitcases, shaking, eyes full of disbelief. It was raining outside. Fitting, really. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Then I remembered the hotel photos, the messages, the laughter that wasn't for me. I stepped aside. "Goodbye." She stood there another second, waiting for me to change my mind. When I didn't, she walked out into the rain. I closed the door behind her, slowly, quietly, and locked it. Not out of anger, but closure. Because sometimes love doesn't end with a bang. Sometimes it ends with a door clicking shut and the sound of silence finally feeling like peace. After she left, the house didn't sound the same. It was too quiet. No footsteps down the hall. No hum of her singing while making coffee. No soft clatter of her mug in the sink. Just the low buzz of the refrigerator and the rain tapping against the windows. That first night I didn't sleep. I just sat on the couch staring at the front door, half expecting her to knock, half praying she wouldn't. But she didn't come back. And for the first time in months, I didn't have to wonder where she was. The next few days blurred together. I went to work, came home, made dinner for one. The silence was heavy at first, uncomfortable, almost suffocating. But after a while, it started to feel like something else. Peace. The kind that doesn't come with laughter or conversation. Just stillness. Friends started texting. Some said they were proud of me for kicking her out. Others wanted all the details. I didn't give them any. I wasn't looking for applause. I just wanted to breathe again. A week later, one of her friends reached out. She's been staying at a motel, she said. She's not doing well. I just nodded. Didn't ask questions. What was I supposed to say? Tell her I'm sorry, she's dealing with the consequences of her own choices. Then another text came from a mutual friend. She lost her job. Then another. She's been sleeping in her car. Each update landed like a dull thud in my chest. I didn't feel joy or pity, just a strange detachment, like watching a movie I'd already seen. She'd made her bed. Now she was finally lying in it, alone. Still, part of me couldn't help but think about her sitting somewhere, cold and afraid. That used to be the part of me that would rush to help, no matter what she'd done. But that part of me had learned its lesson. One night, there was a knock on the door. I didn't even have to look through the peephole to know who it was. Her voice came through softly, almost broken. "Please, can we talk?" I stood there, hand on the doorknob, heart pounding. For a second, I imagined opening it, letting her in, letting her explain. But I'd heard all her explanations before. They just came with different excuses each time. So I stepped back and let the silence answer for me. After a moment, I heard her footsteps fade away. Then nothing. That was the last time I saw her. And standing there in that quiet house, I realized something I hadn't felt since the day I caught her cheating. Control. I didn't have to fix her, forgive her, or understand her anymore. I just had to live without her. And strangely enough, that didn't feel like punishment. It felt like freedom. Weeks turned into months. Life moved on, just slower than before. I started getting used to the quiet. The mornings felt lighter, the air clearer. But sometimes, when I'd make coffee and pour only one cup, it still hit me. The echo of what used to be. I never went looking for updates about her, but they always found me. A friend would text, "Hey man, just so you know, she's staying with her cousin now." Another would say, "I think she's trying to find work, but nobody's hiring." It was strange, hearing about her life like she was some distant character from a story I'd stopped reading. Apparently, the guy she cheated with ghosted her, blocked her number, moved on like she never existed. That part didn't surprise me. People who cheat rarely build anything that lasts. They just burn bridges and look for new ones to cross. One day, I ran into one of her old friends at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable, like just seeing me reminded her of the drama. "She's not doing well," she finally said. "She's been couch hopping." Everyone kind of backed away after what happened. I nodded. Yeah, that tends to happen when the mask comes off. I didn't say it with anger. Just truth. Still, that night, I thought about her. Not with love, not even with pity, just reflection. I realised that for all her talk about freedom and excitement, she'd never actually built a life on her own. Everything she had, the home, the stability, the comfort, came from me. And when she threw that away, she didn't gain independence. She just lost her safety net. There's a cruel irony in betrayal. The person who cheats thinks they're escaping confinement, but what they're really doing is digging a deeper hole, one they'll have to live in alone when the adrenaline fades. I heard later that she'd tried to reach out to mutual friends, asking them to talk to me for her. None of them did. They'd seen what she'd done. They'd seen the messages. They knew the truth. Even sympathy has limits when the evidence is that clear. One friend told me she was staying at a shelter for a while. I didn't react. He looked at me like he was waiting for outrage or guilt, but all I said was, "I hope she figures herself out." And I meant it. Not because I wanted her back. That part of me was gone. But because there's a difference between hating someone and letting them go. I wasn't holding on to anger anymore. I was holding on to peace. The truth is, her downfall didn't make me feel strong. It just made me understand how fragile everything really is. Trust, love, stability. You think it's concrete until someone shows you it's just glass. And once it shatters, all you can do is step carefully and walk away without looking back. It's been a year since the day I told her to leave. The house feels different now. Lighter, cleaner, peaceful in a way I forgot peace could feel. I still catch myself glancing at the driveway sometimes, half expecting her car to be there. Old habits die slow, I guess. But mostly, I've learned how to live again. Not move on. Because moving on sounds like something you do after a minor setback. This wasn't that. This was rebuilding, piece by piece. I used to think closure came from apologies. That if she said the right words, if she cried hard enough, I'd finally be able to let go. But closure doesn't come from the person who hurt you. It comes from the moment you realise you don't need their validation to heal. I don't hate her. I don't love her either. I just understand her now. Some people confuse comfort with love and attention with affection. They want to be adored, but not accountable. And when someone truly loves them, it feels boring. Because real love isn't chaos. It's calm. That's what she never understood. She mistook peace for emptiness. She thought excitement meant passion. And by the time she realised the difference, she had nowhere left to go. I've learned that betrayal changes you. Not just the way you see others, but the way you see yourself. You start questioning everything. Your worth, your judgment, your ability to trust. But in time, if you're patient, it teaches you something deeper. That your value was never tied to how someone treated you. When she left, I thought I'd never recover. Now, I see that losing her was the beginning of becoming who I was supposed to be. Not the version of me that bent over backward to keep peace. Not the version that mistook silence for loyalty. But the one who finally understood that self-respect is the highest form of love there is. Sometimes people ask if I regret kicking her out. The truth? I don't. I regret not doing it sooner. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I wasted so much time trying to fix someone who was breaking me. She's out there somewhere, probably still trying to find someone else to fill the emptiness she never dealt with. And maybe one day she'll figure it out, but that's not my story anymore. Mine is simpler. I wake up, make my own coffee, and sit by the same window she once stood beside. Except now, the light feels warmer. Because peace, I've learned, isn't something you find in another person. It's what happens when you finally stop fighting for people who were never fighting for you.